Hello and welcome to another episode of Voice from the Desert. This is once again Ariel, and once again we're going to go right into this. We left off last time in Ephesians chapter 6. So just to recap, we're going to be starting reading again from verse 12. We're going to read verse 12 again. For powers over this present darkness against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Now we go on to verse 13. Therefore, take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand rather, in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. We were talking about putting on the armor of God and the reason why we have to do that. And we started off with verse 10, and last time we were talking about be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. The emphasis is to find strength in God. Now, humanly speaking, we have no strength to do this. We're talking about spiritual warfare. The spiritual warfare, they might have dressed it up, you might start getting into some Harry Potter illustrations to think that, well, it's this, it's that, it's either this or that, or whatever it is. It's neither of those things, actually. It's resisting the desires of your flesh. If you remember the story of Adam and Eve, how did the devil, dressing up the part as a serpent, get to Eve? How did he get her? How did he get her to sin? And how did he get Adam to sin as well? Because it wasn't just Eve. Adam had some participation in that as well. But how did they get them? Well, he worked with the desires of their heart. So he mingled it with sprinkles of things that seemed to be appeasing and enticing. And the main thing is, it was focused on their personal gain. It was focused more on what you can want, what you can get. And these battles in the flesh that we have are not battles that we're just going to go on a wrestling match with somebody. This is not scripted WWE or AEW or whatever wrestling company that you prefer. This is not scripted. This is him finding out what your weaknesses are and going after it. How does he find this out? How does he have this intel on us? Well, we pretty much are creatures of habit. We give giant tells on how we inform things to happen in our daily lives. Like, we communicate on social media sometimes. Maybe we overshare on social media a little bit. Or sometimes we just can't stop talking about what our problems are. Either way, we find a lot of ways of how we vent out and share our frustrations. Also, we might be covering or attempting to covering our stuff in front of people, but there's no way to hide that in front of God. And the enemy has eyes everywhere, and he has seen everything that we do. And therefore, we leave ourselves vulnerable and exposed when we do sin. Sin, yes, is birthed in the inside, but the internal struggle is something only God and you can see. The devil can't see what's going on in your internal struggle. He can't see, he can't tell. He can only tell by your actions. He can only tell by if you took the bait or not. But the temptation is always going to present the temptation. Thing is, are you going to take the bait? That's why the responsibility of sin falls onto us, because yes, the devil's always going to tempt. That's his job. But am I doing my part in resisting? Now, the resisting part is not that I have the power to resist, because if that were the case, then why did Jesus come? Why did he have to die? And because we all can resist the devil, then it's okay. But this is spiritual resistance. So we have to rely on something that is stronger than us, something higher than us. And that is where verse 10 on Ephesians 6 says, finally, be strong in the Lord, in the strength of his might. So our strength comes from God. So if we lean on God, we can resist. We can take the authority over those temptations and struggles with our sinful, lustful nature. And I know it's easier said than done. It's so easy to come here and sit down and tell you, oh, well, this is what you need to do. But where's the accountability, though? Where is the part that you have to take charge and make your own choice and say, you know what? I can't do this. I can't. And that's where I was most of the time. And you know what? You're not alone. If you read the book of Psalms, I've said this before, I'll say it again. If you read the book of Psalms, there's one individual that wrote like 70% of those Psalms. His name is David. You might have heard of him. Our buddy David, he was honest and sincere with God, and he just exposed his heart before the Lord. And if you read some of these Psalms, there are like haunting. And then when you read about his history, I mean, in the books of Samuel, where David's story is mostly told in his youth, it just glances over it. It doesn't give you like a detailed blow for blow of everything that David went through, but it gives you, the ballpark figure. It gives you the general idea of what he was going through. And what he was going through was that he was being persecuted. He was being chased around. He married into a family that now the head of the household, the head of that family, his father-in-law, Saul, was after killing him because Saul felt threatened that this David is going to take over his throne. And the kid only just wanted to serve him. I mean, yeah, he received the promise from God that he was going to be king, but he wasn't after that. He wasn't actively chasing after that. His heart's desire was to serve the king. And if that was going to be God's will, well, God was going to take care of it. He wasn't going to worry how that was going to happen. He was just trying to do the good thing. He was just trying to follow his father-in-law. His best friend was that father-in-law's son, so his brother-in-law became his best friend. And now he was running away from his life, living between caves and deserts, finding places to live. And when you put all that together, you get a combination of a life that wasn't easy. I mean, you put yourself in that shoes. You're basically a wanted man, look for being chased around. You put yourself in that position, you not gonna have very sleepless. Not gonna have like very good nights of rest. You're gonna have a lot of sleepless nights. You're gonna be thinking about a lot of stuff. So David, among a bunch of other things that he was also a composer. He was a singer. He was a songwriter. And there, where you get the Book of Psalms, over 70% of the songs that you have there in the Book of Psalms were written by David, or at least attributed to him. And when you read those Psalms, it is pit of despair. The person that is writing is like, it's the end of his rope. He is desperate. He is just looking for an opportunity to escape, and he doesn't seem to find any refuge in anything. And his life feels like it's going to end. He feels like it's over. He feels like, oh my God, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't escape from this. This is too strong for me. But he always went back to God because he understood that his strength came from God. So when we say that we do not have a wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers, over the priests, darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places, is that we understand who our enemy is. Because our fight is not with people, our fight is with spiritual forces. Because the spiritual does not want to mix with the spiritual darkness, doesn't want to mix in with the light. So he wants to keep us in because the devil misery loves company, so he wants more people to suffer with him. Going back to verse 13, therefore take up the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. Now that, I want to jump into Romans chapter 6. We're going to be reading from verse 5. For if we have been united with him in a death like his, we shall certainly be united with him in a resurrection like his. We know that our old self was crucified with him in order that the body of sin might be brought to nothing, so that we would no longer be enslaved to sin. For one who has died has been set free from sin. Now, if we have died with Christ, we believe that we will also live with him. We know that Christ, being raised from the dead, will never die again. Death no longer has dominion over him. For the death he died to sin, once for all. But the life he lives to God. So you also must consider yourself dead to sin and alive to God in Christ Jesus. So, what is this whole putting the armor thing that we've been talking about now for the last two podcasts? Well, I read this in Romans just to give you a glimpse of what it actually means. It means that you're dead to sin, that you are a co-participator in Jesus' death and resurrection. We're going to go a little bit more deeper into that in a future podcast, but basically what it's saying is that in his death, Jesus took the blow of sin in his body. So his body no longer is responsive to death, of sin, rather. He took sin upon himself. Therefore, if we make ourselves co-participators in that death, we will also be participating with him in that death of sin in us. Now, in the practical sense of things, we can just look how things are and honestly say, like, really, is that really happening? Like, there's very few Christians out there that seem to be doing that part. Not to say maybe almost none. Like, who are believers that are actually killing the sin in them? Well, if you remember Jesus's words, like, if you have to carry your cross and follow me. The cross, or crucifixion rather, in this case, is a very slow death. And it's something that you have to do on a daily basis. So that means that every day you have to learn to die a little. Now, thanks be to God that his sacrifice has made an atonement before God. So that debt has been paid, but that doesn't mean that we just now get to live how leisurely however we want to. This means that now we have to submit ourselves to God, and that submission is through death. But the thing is, and this is the mystery of this walk, like, you die and you willingly put yourself on that cross of death. And what I mean to die, I mean to die to your desires, to die to what you want. You being the leader, you being the decisive, or making the choices, whatever those may be. It doesn't have to be the good or the bad or whatever. It's ambiguous. It doesn't even matter what those choices are. It's just that it's about submission, to let go. And that is something that all of us struggle with. I don't care who you are. All of us struggle, because whether you have a high or low self-esteem, all of us want to hold on to our way. All of us, no exceptions. No exceptions. We all want to hold on to our way because we are people that are very aware of who we ourselves are. But that doesn't necessarily translate in the best way when it comes to living our lives to God. And we don't want to submit to God. We want to have things done our way. But if we are applying this word, we have to put on the armor of God. That means we put on Christ. So if we're dead, we're dead. There's nothing else to be done. So now, what do we have to do? We have to put on Christ so we may be alive in Him. Christianity, at its core, it's about letting go. Letting go. You have to let go. You have to let go of your way. You have to let go of what your opinion is. You have to let go of everything that you hold on dear to and submit it to Christ. Submit it to the cross of Christ. It's a lifelong process. It is not easy. I've been a Christian since I was 13 years old, and sadly, I will have to admit publicly that I have never, up until recently, truly lived it in the way it should have been lived. I was not the poster child for Christian living. I was only Christian in title. I had some knowledge, but the application was very far short and few in between. But I have come to a point in my life that I just know that if I do not let go and give myself to God, the outcome is going to be far, far worse. So I submit myself to God, place myself in His hands, and I have to learn how to crucify my old self in Christ. Again, we read verse 13, therefore take up the whole armor of God. We're going to go into that on future podcasts. What is the whole armor of God? That you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand firm. That means when you put on Christ, you put on the strength and the power and the might and the ability to withstand all the attacks of the enemy. So how do you resist those temptations? How do you resist all those stuff? Well, by putting on Christ. And how does that look like? Well, for that, you're going to have to keep on listening to the podcast. We'll just leave it there for the time being. So this has been the latest episode of Voice from the Desert, and this has been Ariel. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And I hope that this is blessing someone out there. So thank you, and God bless.